Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and vagabonds from outside the Empire. And yes, that is, of course, the hashtag SAOC Empire. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, your favorite NFL program that has been sweeping the YouTube scene for nearly 160 episodes here soon enough. Can't wait to hit that number as we keep going up in increments until the big 200. How the hell are we getting that close? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's program. Of course, myself pontificating at the start, per usual, is the Iceman, myself, Jared. Joining with me at the top of the screen, the leader in the clubhouse, as we'll get to in finer detail later on in the episode. Man who has one mission. Well, he has several missions, but on this show, he has one in particular. The Games Master, Justin. Justin, how are we doing?
Doing well, guys. Doing well. How you guys doing today?
Tired. Genuinely tired. The big mood on this podcast is sigh.
Meh.
But you know what the opposite of sigh and meh is? It's the man who continues to entertain the people in a million ways he somehow knows how to. He'll have a best-selling book one day in terms of podcasting. And it'll get more readers than this show has ever gotten viewers, probably. The Podfather, Rick, how are we doing?
I do want to clarify for the people that it is on my bottom third that we hate to. There it is. Yes, I did raid Justin's closet earlier and steal this shirt, so I wanted to throw a little extra oomph in my wardrobe this evening. So there you go. Yes, and an homage to the clubhouse leader, if you will.
I was gonna say that 100% looks like a shirt that he has worn in the past.
Probably is. I don't know if Justin's a fan of Mutual Weave, if he knows the brand from JCPenney, but it's a pretty decent brand of shirts, I'd say.
I have no idea what that brand is, but it does look like just like a normal green flannel. I assume I definitely have one that looks very similar.
It's actually blue, but it doesn't really work with the blue on the background, so that kind of makes sense. Yeah. But no, it's good. I am, I had a rough week too with people growing older, and The daughter's 2 tomorrow, boys. The daughter is 2 tomorrow.
October has been a busy month for the Podfather. He faced his own mortality earlier in the month with his own passing of the days of birth. So Rick is yet another year older. A quick realization of him yesterday that myself have grown another year older, and Rick quickly realizing that he has known me for about getting close to 8 years now, I believe, if we haven't hit that yet.
Yeah,
which means it's about six years that he's known Justin. So time flies when
6 years and 8 years is about 37 years in normal people time, apparently. So yeah, I still can't believe that you are as young as you are. I almost threw up yesterday when hearing that information. It was that vile.
Well, the people probably guessed when they listened to the podcast because my sunny disposition and my boyish charm obviously let the people know who the youngest on this podcast is. Those points were both sarcastic, just so that people are very well aware of the style of humor that is on the show, which is complete sardonic with a hint of joy. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, Podfather, it may have been a tough week for all of us, but you're going to be taking the reins early in this one. We're going to entertain the people here in a little bit with this week's edition of All Gas, No Brakes, which really should be named something else since the whole point is to pump the brakes. But, who needs accurate name titles for games in this world? But before we get to All Gas, No Brakes, we're going to go by the first stop in the hashtag SAOC station, put that on a t-shirt. And we have Podfathers. No, hold on. That is the graphics people are screwing this up. Come on. What do we pay them for? What on God's green earth do we pay these people
There
for?
It is.
Rick's mind-blowing fact of the week. I'm going to go yell at some graphics people. Podfather, you tell the people what we got this week.
So we, as I also hacked into his system and made him Darkwing Duck, which is just even more hilarious, by the way. This week marked the end of an era in New York Giants football as the Irish terrible kicker Jude McAtamney was officially cut from the team. A man who had, up until this time, had only kicked a field goal for longest of 31 yards in his career. And it got me thinking about somebody else who's kicked the football with the longest of 31 yards. And that would be tonight's featured guest, Todd Schluppy. And you may be wondering to yourself, who is Todd Schlope? Well, Todd Schlope was actually a football player at Michigan. He went there from 1981 to 1984. He was a two-time All Big Ten academic team kicker because, one thing we know about kickers is that they are smart on the other side of things. But he was barefoot. He was a barefoot kicker who was born and raised in Bradford, Pennsylvania, and went to high school at Orchard Park in Western New York. So imagine that, being barefoot in the 80s in Western New York in those winters. Brutal. Todd Schlope got his real big break in 1987 in the NFL, playing for his hometown Buffalo Bills due to the NFL players' strike of that season. He, was called in because Scott Norwood, 4 years before his horrendous wide right kick in the Super Bowl, took part in the strike. And in the Bills' 6-3 win over the Giants that season, he kicked 2 field goals, with the second one coming in overtime, and meaning that he was one of 3 kickers in NFL history, barefoot, to win a regular season in overtime. But let's be real here. You probably would know Todd Schlope from his other credits, if you know anything about film. Because if you know film, you'll know some of the names of films that I'm going to tell you that he's worked on, because I will say this man is a world-renowned Hollywood cameraman. So let me just give you a few movies that he has been credited for in his time. Does anyone remember the 2001 Jack Black film Shallow Hal? Because he was a cameraman on that one too. How about G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra from 2009? Yes, he took that one too. I will say that one of his first big breaks, though, was in 1997 for Starship Troopers, which has become the big meme of time. I'm doing my part, basically. I wonder which one he was there for. But there are some more recent moves that he's been a cameraman operated for. You have the classic Air Force One in 1997 with Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman. You have Bad Times at the El Royale from 2018, which is a great movie, by the way. I think it was really, really good. Both Ride Along and Ride Along 2, he was a cameraman for. Red Dawn in 2011. Jonah Hex. And then there were a couple of smaller budget movies. You might not have heard of them. Iron Man 3 was one of them. No, yep. Transformers was another one. The Revenant, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, who I don't know who that guy is, but it sounds like a big name. And he also worked on an Academy Award-winning film with some controversy attached to it, because if you know the Academy Awards, you'll know when I say the name Crash, you'll know that that movie did not deserve to win Best Picture, but he was a cameraman on that movie there. So a while back, we talked about Giants owner Steve Tisch being an Oscar winner for Forrest Gump. Well, it turns out that there's more Oscar winners that have NFL ties, and that, my friends, is the ballad of one Todd Schlope.
Well done. Well done. As you were listing off his accomplishments, Rick, I had to search him up. There's also some snow sports that run in his family as well. His son is a gold medal winner, from what I was reading at the X Games.
Yeah,
it's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, it's not bad, not bad at all, I will say. And of course, what's the other part of that is that he's related in marriage to Summer Sanders, who was quite the heartthrob and attractive personality back in the early 90s for a young sports journalist wannabe over here. So, yeah.
Oh, well.
Good times, though.
No, the ballad of Todd Schlope. You know, we should just rewind that entire thing, and that could just be Rick's ode to Christmas this year. Honestly, just him retelling that story, but with like a Christmas jingle behind it. If we can, we'd probably get copyrighted for it.
More than likely. Well, depends. If we can find a karaoke version of Jingle Bells, I think it'll be okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Good old YouTube audio library. It's time for a reunion.
Absolutely. YouTube audio library. Let's ride.
Right. Let's ride. Let's ride.
Yep, let's ride.
And let's ride on, ladies and gentlemen. Are we going to go fast and furious? Or are we going to be like a grandmother in the far right lane, still going 20 miles below the speed limit because she's just a nice old woman and she's just trying to enjoy a nice, simple drive. It is time for this week's edition of All Gas, No Breaks. As all of you know, it is the powers that be on this network that decide on a rotating weekly basis which one of us is going to end up giving a set of takes based off of the predominantly most recent week of the NFL season. But of course, as we have discussed, it can build on. We have already hit on a number of teams throughout the season continuously. The Eagles and Ravens have both featured very early on in this program. I'm sure the Chiefs and the Colts are going to be making appearances once again relatively soon in the coming weeks because there's definitely a decent bit of discussion to have about both those teams. But this week, of course, they gave the power to the Podfather, so it will be the Podfather that will give us his take or his slate of takes. We have a half dozen in the chamber, from what I've been told. So, Rick, you continue to lead us on. All gas, no breaks. You are the driver.
Sorry, moving on. All right, so we're going to start this week with a spicy one because I think we have to. There's a team that is quite bad, and there's a team that has a quarterback who at one point was revered. But to be honest with you, I hate to say it. Actually, I don't. I was freaking right the whole time that he was not a top 10 quarterback in this league. And it showed last week after 3 interceptions, only 100 yards, and being taken out for a guy who had a burnt orange Aston Martin at one point in his college career. Going into this week, gentlemen, all gas, no breaks. This week is Tua's last chance saloon. Miami is 1-6. They look terrible on offense. If it doesn't work out here, they do have a short week because they have Baltimore on the 30th. But if it doesn't work out here against Atlanta, if they can't figure something out on offense, turn the keys over to Quinn Ewers and be done with it. This is Tua's final shot at being a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I'm going to pump the brakes on this one. I think for however bad Miami has been, especially this last week, and how up and down he's been, he's shown enough promise and he's young enough that even if it's the last chance in Miami, it's not his last chance in the NFL.
Yeah, I was going to say, if this had strictly been his last chance in Miami, I'm actually, all gas on this one. Because I do think for just about everyone in that power structure in Miami, it's almost a last chance saloon. If they can't rebound to a respectable record and a respectable season, which, I mean, at this point, like, we know they're not going to make the postseason, but just not looking like what is one of the worst teams in the league after, like, literally, I know maybe certain people, myself included, were like all really high on them going into 2024. But from being a team that we thought could challenge the divisional winners of not just when it comes to the Bills and the AFC East, but just like the top teams in the AFC in general, to think that was the perception of them before 2024. And now we're less than 2 calendar years later, and they've completely fallen off the face of the earth. Like, I think if we shift the context to last chance in Miami, all gas. If we are keeping it to just overall NFL, I'm kind of with Justin because I think we've seen in this league and other sports leagues, if you are a high draft pick and you have proven yourself at least to a modicum of a level, you will get an opportunity again. Is he going to get paid 40, 45, $50 million ever again? No. Once they figure out how to get rid of that contract, no. But in a year or two from now, if a team needs a bridge quarterback or if their current young quarterback is completely failing them and actually, it still would be a bridge quarterback, or they're willing to give Tua a chance, like a Geno Smith, like a Sam Darnold have both gotten, like a Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to get more chances. So all gas on it's over in Miami. Pump the brakes on his career as a starting quarterback. If they say you can't hit the brake and gas pedal at the same time because the car will take a screenshot of you in memory.
It will. It very much will do that. Yes. All right, so then follow up. Where do you think he goes if it's in Miami? What team makes sense for him? If you have a team in mind,
I didn't have one off the top of my head,
because I mean I don't really know. I don't really see many, if any, suitors.
Look, he's not failing necessarily, but if he was bad, Michael Penix in Atlanta, you could be getting better there, and Tua can make it work with good weapons. If anything, Bijan will be the greatest running back he's probably ever had, even if you include some of his Bama days. So like maybe Atlanta just from a fit of like thinking of the weapons around him there. And then now see Houston I was thinking of for a second, but no, like even if they give up on CJ Stroud, like I think they would just tank for the next quarterback. I don't even know if they would want like to give a real veteran a shot. Like they would maybe only go with like a 1 year stopgap, a la. Is Curtis Painter somewhere? Kerry Collins? Are they come out of retirement for?
I don't think so. There. All right, move on to the second one. There are a good number of players who, through 7 games this season, are on a fantastic pace for setting new marks, high achievements, and all that. We're going to move over to the defensive side of the ball. Jordan Brooks is currently the leading tackler in the NFL at 75 through 7 games. There's a gentleman that's tied for third with 70 who Justin, I think, has a little bit of fondness for. Now, there is a caveat to this question as well, or all gas, no breaks. But this is for Justin primarily. Jamien Sherwood is going to break Ray Lewis's tackles record this season. Now, I'm not saying he's going to lead the league in tackles, but through 7 games, he's averaging 10 tackles a game. For a context, Ray Lewis's solo tackles record, set in 1997, is 156. So by that metric and by that logic, he's on pace for 170. Will that continue with the Jets defense? All gas or no breaks?
Nah, I'll get hurt.
Wow. I tried to bring some positivity to the discussion for the Jets because there's not a lot that I can say.
I was gonna say
it's a great story though. He's having a great year.
It would be pretty Jets to have like arguably the worst full team season of all time and still have like a guy break a legendary Hall of Famer's tackle record. That would be something.
A guy who, for right now, all intents and purposes, is like kind of anonymous to the average NFL fan base. Like he was a pretty late round pick, was he not?
I believe he was. Yeah. Let me just confirm that 5th round pick in 2021.
Like he's been in the league for a couple of years. I'm not saying any disrespect to him as a player. I'm happy that he's making it work. If anything, like the closer he gets, is he on like a legitimate contract with the Jets, or is he going to be a free agent? Because you get close to that tackle record, I see a couple $1 million a year in his future by somebody.
Yeah, I think so.
I think this will almost like kind of add to Justin's pain if this guy gets close to the tackle record and then just leaves them after a year.
That's even worse.
Yeah,
that'd be the right move for him.
I want to have fun, but I don't know. I'm going to say pump the brakes a little bit. Again, nothing. I won't say that he'll get hurt or anything like that. I just think, with guys past, like there's a game or two where it slows down, and it's probably going to end up being the case with him at some point as well. So I'll say pump the brakes, but honestly, like our record watch, which is what we do halfway through the season, if there's something notable or like in distance or even towards the end is like the big thing for us, like within the last couple of weeks. If he comes back up, that'll be interesting. That'll be something to watch out for all intents and purposes. So pump the brakes for now, but I would love if he could.
Incidentally, I did mention Jordan Brooks is first and Jamien Sherwood is tied for third. Second place, 2 off the lead right now. Somehow, 35-year-old Bobby Wagner. What? How?
You want to talk about bright spots, one of the few bright spots right now for the Commanders, because there is a lot of sadness on that team right now.
Oh, yeah, there certainly is. And speaking of sadness, it's been a rough year for certain players and certain positions, but also for certain exciting facets of the game. Gentlemen, there's only been 1 kickoff return for a touchdown so far this season. We've had some close ones. Amir Abdullah had an 81-yard return. Another Jet, Kene Nwangwu, had a 72-yard return, so we're getting there. But the only kickoff return so far for a touchdown, Antonio Gibson of the Patriots, who was placed on IR a few weeks ago. So, with the dynamic kickoff in place, gentlemen, all gas, pump the brakes. There will not be another kickoff return for a touchdown at all this season.
I almost think, like, even as a continuation of it, like, if there really is no other one for this season, like, if they almost have to revisit the kickoff once again, because, like, there being no kickoff return for a touchdown possibility is just like that's just boring. like there's supposed to be an edge of excitement like to it. So
the new kickoff is terrible.
Yeah,
so bad.
This is one of those things where it's like I don't know how loud the discourse has been on social and like Twitter so far, but it needs to ramp up if it's not right now, because it's to point out there's only been one to this point, and the fact that we can actually have a legitimate conversation that there might not be another one for the rest of the season. I will say all gas just for the intensive purposes of this having to be revisited in the offseason. I understand why it was adjusted because, look, at the end of the day, I am a player safety guy. I do want the players to be as safe as possible. That being said, it is also football. There are car crashes and collisions on every single play. I respectfully must say I don't know if doing what they've done to the kickoff is actually lessening injuries. I just don't think they're trying to put a Band-Aid over a crack in the cement right now. That's not how you fix problems. That's just not how you do it. So I'll say all gas on this one.
I think there's too many to say that there won't be another touchdown, but Jerk is right. It's horrible. Fix it.
Yeah. I mean, it shows you basically how the kicking game has come when Dallas gets a safety called against them. And they have a free punt from the 20-yard line, and Brandon Aubrey still kicks through the back of the end zone for a touchback. Like, what are we doing? It's stupid to me. But speaking of Brandon Aubrey, he currently is tied for the lead in the NFL in total scoring this year. Total scoring is a statistic that has become kicker heavy. Since 2006, a kicker has led the league in scoring every single season. Now, in 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson was the running back who had that record. Brandon Aubrey is tied for first right now with 68 total points, but not with another kicker, gentlemen. He is tied with Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back, who's off to a phenomenal season. Now, Jonathan Taylor is the only non-kicker in the top 15 in total scoring. So, that being said, knowing how good the Colts offense is, all gas from the breaks, a non-kicker will lead the NFL in total scoring this year. For context, Jonathan Taylor is 68. The next highest position player, Josh Jacobs, with 48, who's 20 off. What do we think?
And we'd have to keep on an immaculate pace. I mean, what has he got? 4 games with 3 touchdowns already?
Mm-hmm.
Which is already like an unbelievable number. But
so just to give you, so through 7 games, Jonathan Taylor has 10 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, and a 2-point conversion to his name as well.
Attaboy.
That's why he's at 68 instead of 66.
Yep, and he's on the league leading offense. So he's in the right situation for it. I don't know how any player can keep up that scoring pace.
If he can and he doesn't win the MVP award, then this is a fake league. Yep. Like that. Like you literally have an offensive player who is quite literally in points scored leads the entire league in a situation where it's almost impossible, especially for a skill position player, to do this. I mean, come on. Like, again, I'm torn between. I don't know how realistic this is. Like, I'm kind of with Justin, where it's like, I'm kind of with Justin how he was with the kickoffs, where it's like realistically, I think kickers will eventually like catch up, and he is going to he will have an off game here soon enough that will end up costing him and make him go a little bit back. But I kind of want to say I want to go all gas, no brakes on this because it's such a fun one. I guess I'm just going to be in the passenger side seat with Rick on this one. Let's just go all gas. Let's have some fun with this. Come on. If Jonathan Taylor can get close to being the league leader, and if he even, it's still Tomlinson with the rushing touchdown record, right?
Correct.
Oh, if he can touch either of these two things like this season, how is he not the MVP right now? Come on. Do better, NFL.
Because he's not a quarterback, and he's not Patrick Mahomes.
I hate this league.
I know. I do too. If you look through the standings, gentlemen, in the National Football Conference, the NFC, you'll notice a very interesting trend is currently happening with the top 4 teams obviously being the division winners, but then you look at who's in the wild card and who's just on the outside looking in. So, with that in mind, gentlemen, we are 7 weeks into the season. The NFC South and NFC East will both be shut out of wild card berths. Here's how it looks currently at the moment. Obviously, if you're top 4, Detroit is the 5th seed at 5-2, tied with Seattle and the Rams. Then there's Chicago at 4-2. Then you have Carolina at 4-3, Dallas at 3-3-1, Atlanta at 3-3. So there are 3 teams in the South and the East who could jump, but they have to beat an NFC North team who's currently having the run of a lifetime at this moment. The Bears are on a great run. So conceivably speaking, this originally was going to be the NFC North will have 4 teams in the playoffs, but the Vikings are kind of hit or miss. But conceivably speaking, you could have 3 teams from the West or 2 and 2 from the West and from the North making it. What do we think?
I'm kind of honestly, I'll. It's hard because like we don't have the full game by game breakdown for all of them. It would take too long to try to figure all that out. So I'll just say I'll guess on this one. Like, yeah, no, the NFC South, I'm long resigned to the fact that they're probably only going to end up being a one team division this year, and it's going to be Tampa. They've taken some lumps here recently. Unfortunate news with Mike Evans. You know, we all shed a tear when we got that notification, unfortunately, and the loss to Detroit does not help the MVP case for Baker. But with that being said, like, you know, even with Carolina, technically they're only like a game or so, like a game behind them. The Falcons being 3-3, the Falcons just dropping the game to San Francisco, which further bolsters the NFC West, one of their teams in the wild card picture. The NFC South is just not deep enough. And then honestly, the NFC East, like the Eagles should be really happy about what's happening right now because they, even at 5-2, this has not been the kind of start you would have expected from them, given the level of talent and what we saw from them in not just small moments, big moments last year. But the fact that the Cowboys season, like they didn't have CD for a while, that defense is still trying to figure itself out. Like they're a bit better from the start of the season, but they're still not elite. They're just not. And you have the Commanders who at first it was injury with Jaden Daniels, and now it's just like it almost looks like their season could come close to unraveling. Like you have to question the trueness of those two teams. Like, and right now, it's kind of like, you know, you pick out of a lineup like between the NFC North and the NFC West. Yeah, I'm picking 5 teams, maybe 6 teams before I pick any of the other non-division winners from the other two. Right? Like yeah, Detroit 5-2. We know how good they are. Chicago is 4-game win streak after an awful start to the season. Shout out to Ben Johnson. I don't think he's getting enough praise. Minnesota is still, you know, like you had said, Rick, it's hit or miss, but still respectable team, still veterans on that squad. They're bound to have a mini run here with O'Connell. He just proves himself somehow year in and year out. And then the NFC West minus the Cardinals is just a bloodbath. Like I would take 5 of those 6 teams under the division winners from those two before I'm picking any of the other non-division leaders from the other two. Like it's pretty wide gap.
I will say the interesting story too. Carolina's only a game back of Tampa Bay. You guys were a couple years off, it looks like, with your Panthers predictions. Couple years. Justin, all gas or pump the brakes on this one?
We were also a couple years, a couple coaches, a general manager.
well, yeah.
Bryce Young's entire career trajectory.
Yep, basically. Justin, your thoughts?
I am all gas on this. Look, the Panthers look okay right now, but you also have to see their last 3 wins, which they did win 3 wins in a row. They beat the Dolphins, the Cowboys, and the Jets. And the Cowboys is an impressive one in there, but they beat the Dolphins and the Jets. So, and the Bucks lost to the Eagles and the Lions.
Yeah.
Let's that one you should pump the brakes to. But I'm all gas on that other take, man. I certainly don't see any NFC East teams making it. Washington and the Giants both look rough. The Cowboys are maybe the only one that I could see doing this because they're going to benefit from that tie in their standings. So that coming down the stretch can have some real implications. But yeah, I would say all gas on that.
I will say that the only thing that I can say about Baker Mayfield's performance about the MVP voting did not like that, good sir. Not at all. All right, this is the last one, and I'm gonna be the total pot stirrer.
Of course.
Crack open my 7-Up Shirley Temple, not a sponsor, but like to be for this one. Because if I were
real quick, by the way, the show is open to all sponsors. Like we will sell. I will sell my soul.
Pomegranate and cherry 7-Up. I'll take that in a heartbeat. If I were to give you gentlemen a 3-leg parlay for FanDuel to bet on, it would be this. Because we're coming to the end of one sports season that I'll get to in my rant podium because I have some things to say to certain people about it. But we're also starting up a couple some more new seasons. We had hockey start up in the past couple of weeks. And tonight, probably going on right now, the return of the legendary Round Ball Rock. The NBA on NBC is back.
Currently on
I'm not an NBA fan by any stretch of the imagination. I think you all know that. But Jurg has a team that he follows,
Yes.
and Justin has a team that he follows as well. Justin's team, I believe, is predicted to go very far this season. Jurg's, I can't say the same for you, but it got me thinking. In all this misery and all this heyday and all this humdrum that is New York sports, wouldn't it be something if the Knicks were to win one of their first 2 games this week, and the Nets were to win one of their first 2 games this week before the Jets won their first game? But then I had another thought for the 3-leg parlay. There's another New York Metro team in basketball that everyone's talking about. And they start on Monday as a top 5 team. So, gentlemen, all gas or pump the brakes on this one. Before the Jets win their first game, the Nets, the Knicks, and St. John's men's basketball will win their first games.
All gas, dude. The Jets aren't going to win. When do you see the Jets winning?
Well, again, this week is Cincinnati coming up, I believe, and then they have a bye.
Now they have Joe Burrow lighting teams up. So,
well, Joe Flacco, but
that's what I meant. Joe Flacco. They already had Joe Burrow.
That one we can't do Justin Burrow or Joe Herbert with, because there's Joe and Joe. So it works out pretty well. But I mean, the problem with this one, I think, is that you trust the Nets to win a game.
Yeah, well, they have a lot more chances. Also,
that's true. I mean, 2 before the Jets play again. But yeah.
And they're not playing this week, so they have time for that.
Well, then here's the thing, because if the Jets do fall to 0-8, then their next game isn't until November 9th.
St. John's does play Monday night, November 3rd, their first game. They are hosting Quinnipiac.
Oh, they better win that game.
You better win that game. As the number 5 team in the country, you better win. No disrespect to the Bobcats of Hamden, former NCAA Frozen Four champion, but basketball's not really their forte.
Yeah, definitely not.
But
no, I mean, this is depressing. This is just
I'm sorry that I have to end it like this, but I mean, I think this is a pretty good thought. I did see this on Twitter, and then I added the St. John's to it because I'm like, you know what? Why not?
Here's the thing. The reason I'm going to say pump the brakes is because you included the Nets. Dude, they're garbage this year.
That's the point that I'm trying to make, though, is that if you include the Nets in the discussion, it makes it a little more dicey.
And so I want to be a little kind to the Jets here, because look, it's going to be easy to rack on them this entire time. The Nets, okay, the one winnable game they truly have to start out their season in the first 5 games, let's say, is going to be against the Hornets. Let's say they lose. If they lose that one, they face Cleveland. Cleveland's going to smoke them. They face San Antonio. Wemby's going to drop 30 and 30 on them. They face the Rockets. The Rockets are an interesting team to look at. They have a bunch of talent. Then they face Atlanta. Atlanta is very much revitalized. And then to start out November, they're facing a lot of teams here. Honestly, it's kind of a rough pull for the Nets. I think of their first 10 games of the season, 10 or 11, over half of them are teams that made the postseason last year.
Yes, but don't forget they also have NBA Cup group play games, which some teams don't really care about that much.
True, but the first one is against the Pistons, and the Pistons are actually a pretty good team, and they kind of even if you don't care about the NBA Cup, that game still counts to the regular season. The Pistons are a team that, quick little NBA corner here, the East is wide open this year. The Celtics are down with injury, the Pacers are down with injury. The 2 years ago NBA champion and last year's Eastern Conference final winner that made it to Game 7 of the NBA Finals are both in flux with their teams right now. There is so much in the Eastern Conference that makes it wide open. There's not going to be a Pistons, a Magic. The Pistons and the Magic and teams like that are not going to waste this prime opportunity. You talked about the Knicks for Justin. The Knicks could and should be the first seed this year. They could be the first seed, and they could make the East run through MSG. This is special times right now. The Nets, I think it's just bad luck. I think they face a lot of teams here. Literally after that Hornets season opener, I don't see a legitimate on paper, and I know at the end of the day it's on paper versus on the court, but if you're just strictly going on paper, I don't know if I see a real on paper win for them until after the Jets game against the Browns. So I'll say pump the brakes here, A, out of kindness, and B, the Nets are not good. They're just, I'll be shocked if they're 500 after the first 10 games. That's how bad they are.
But again, all it takes is one.
That's true.
All it takes is one. Sorry,
I'm trying to be nice.
sorry, Justin, but
No, there's no chance. They're not gonna. There's no chance they beat the Browns or the Patriots. It's like maybe depending on what Ravens team they get, but realistically, they're gonna get a better Ravens team than we saw earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Falcons are better than them. The Dolphins already beat them. They're not gonna beat the Jaguars. Maybe the Saints game. I don't know. They might not gonna win until actual December.
What a cold winter that'll be, to say the very least.
not going to be pretty, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Not going to be pretty.
Not going to be pretty in any way, shape, or form. I mean, that Cleveland game is going to be interesting because right now it's Dylan Gabriel, who he's been very so for the Browns, right?
But that defense is too good.
Yeah. And the thing with the Browns is maybe Dylan Gabriel, the ups and downs of a rookie quarterback. Maybe if only there was a decent veteran quarterback on that team that they had just given a little bit of a shot for. Maybe they have a chance for an extra win here and there.
They have one, but Deshaun can't play right now.
Well, I said decent veteran quarterback.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the first word there.
Both on and off the field. So with that being said, first off, fantastic all gas, no breaks, Rick. And secondly, the Browns did have a veteran quarterback that could maybe somehow steal you a win. He did steal them a win earlier this season. And what did they do? They shipped him across city lines within the same state. Because to start off the Week 7 highlights, the one time I picked the Steelers for my 4-point pick, and the defense just reverts to status quo. Play down to your competition. So, Mike Tomlin, you better get on the show here sometime soon because I picked your team and you screwed me out of 4 points here, man. But the Cincinnati Bengals get a 33-31 win on Thursday Night Football. It's always the weird ones on paper that give the really good Thursday night games somehow. And a vintage Joe Flacco versus veteran Steelers starting quarterback matchup here. 7 touchdowns between Flacco and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm eyeballing it, I think, just under 600 passing yards. So despite the 2 interceptions for old Raj, the 2 of them turned back the clock. Brown had 108 carries. Warren had 108 carries. 108 yards, excuse me. 108 carries would have been wild. Warren had 127 yards. Jamar Chase had $161. Freiermuth had 111 yards and a brace of touchdowns. WTF was this game, to say the very least. It was the Bengals had an early double-digit lead. The Steelers were trying to claw back. They took a lead in the dying moments of the game with just before the 2-minute warning off a deep vertical pass to Freiermuth from Rodgers. Yak. But then Evan McPherson being way better this year than he was last season because I don't think he was that good last year. Clutch field goal, clutch in, and the Cincinnati Bengals survived. So this is kind of one of those questions. I mean, you boys can, of course, go into detail about whatever aspects of the game you do specifically want to go to. But I kind of asked this question in the description for the people to wonder, and as well as on Twitter, in the post for it. But lads, how real is it that Joe Flacco can save the Bengals season right now as they are waiting for their knight in Baton Rouge armor to return? And what are the odds that Joe Burrow, when he returns, is returning to a football team that has a respectable record that can make the postseason? Can Joe Flacco do it for the Big Dipper in Cincinnati?
Yeah. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that they're a 500 team after this week. They're at home. They're playing the Jets. There's a good chance that they're 4-4, which is not something we predicted when Joe Burrow went down, especially after the first few performances from Browning. It feels like he was in there forever, but really he was only in there for 2-3 games. But it was a rough 3 games for them. So yeah, I think it's very possible. I don't think they have the hardest schedule either in the next few weeks. I mean, around when are we expecting him back? They said mid to late November, right?
Yeah, Thanksgiving is the earliest prognosis, I believe, for that.
Yeah, so I mean, they play the Jets, the Bears, the Steelers, and the Patriots, and 3 of those teams are pretty okay, up and coming. The Steelers probably should have pulled that one out. The Bears are a sneaky good team this year. They're not great, but they're a sneaky good team. They play well. And the Patriots are leading their division too. So it's hard to say that they're going to be anything but 500. But I think if I was taking 7-7 or a 6-6. If someone was offering me 6-6 and Joe Burrow missed half the season, I'm taking 6-6.
Yeah, truthfully. And like they have a chance. They could be sneaky good. The Patriots could fall off by that point. The Bears, like they're, that could actually be a low-key, sleeper of an entertaining game. It's something. Rick, old man Joe Flacco, is he going to revitalize the Joe Flacco is elite discussions this late in his career?
Isn't it amazing too that the Jets right now, they're bookended by two starting quarterbacks that they once had who will come back from the depth just to kill them, because that's just how things go. Started with Rodgers and it's going to go into Flacco here, basically. What I will say
I forgot Flacco started actual games for them.
I know. What I will say about this for Cincinnati too, they're kind of doing it with. It's not just they don't have Burrow, but this past week their receiving core was pretty small. I mean, Flacco only found 5 targets, 4 if you don't count Chase Brown catching 2 catches for -8 yards. It was Jamar Chase who caught the ball 16 times, but was targeted 23 times in this game.
That brought him well within the lead for the receptions in the league.
Hello.
Second in yards, by the way, and tied for 5th. Is a triple crown back on track for Jamar Chase?
Why not? It was that. It was T. Higgins, 6 catches on 10. Yoshabas was 3 catches on 4. Noah Fant caught all 4 targets. That was it. Because Joe Flacco found his targets. He found what worked. And the rest of the offense hummed as well. Brown, we mentioned he didn't have a great game receiving the ball, but he carried the ball 11 times for 108 yards. Gashing this vaunted Steelers defense. So, yeah, I think it's very possible that what Flacco's – but keep in mind, again, Flacco is good with reclamation projects. He is one in of itself. What did he do with the Browns that year? He came off the couch and he led them to an 11-5 record and a playoff appearance.
And comeback player of the year.
It's not unfathomable to think that he won't do it again. I mean, this is what Joe Flacco does. He may be old because he is an old man. He's 40, Mike Gundy, but he's still got it. He still looks like the guy that won that Super Bowl when Beyonce blacked out the stadium. He still looks like him, and it's gonna be. Look, I do want to say, it's going to be interesting and be that kind of person to stir the pot when it comes to, when Burrow comes back and Flacco's still doing well, is this Flacco's team? Like, no, it's still Burrow's team.
Yeah, it's dumb.
But if Flacco, like Justin's saying, if Flacco can get them to 500 when Burrow comes back, or possibly better than 500 when Burrow comes back, I think you've won that trade hands down, and It's better for all parties, and you're right. Jamar Chase looks great now. Again, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of hope and excitement in Cincinnati. I think they just gotta keep the good times rolling.
Also, genuinely, like if you are the Bengals after seeing this, now he would have to be willing to play one more year. But why not just have Flacco now re-sign for next season if he's to be your backup as well?
Because I do believe too that kind of like what Jameis Winston did last year in Cleveland. You can still go for starting quarterback jobs and starting quarterback money. Listen, maybe Flacco parlays us into a Miami gig next year. If Tua's not going to be the quarterback next year, maybe Flacco goes there for one more year, It's possible.
I mean, I guess if he wants to start, then that would be the case. But it ultimately depends. Like, if you want to if he gets himself a second Super Bowl as a backup, not a bad gig. Not a bad gig, honestly. But all right, there's a quartet of blowouts to start the early games last week. We're just going to ricochet our way through them, to say the very least, because some of these games, certain things to note more than others, to say the least. The Los Angeles Rams defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, despite the fact that the game was in London, ladies and gentlemen, do not be fooled. It might as well have been a home game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, since they claimed London at this point as their second home. And this was before they even started AEW, essentially. So the London Jaguars got pummeled by the visiting Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford, less than 200 passing yards. That wasn't going to stop him from dropping 5 touchdowns in this one. 5 passing TD game for Stafford here. Dominating win. The Rams find themselves back up there, very much in the hunt for the NFC West title. Boys, is the veteran gunslinger, has he found his way in the MVP conversations now as we approach the end of the one half of the season?
You got to consider it.
Yes, and give me a moment. I'll pull up the full stats of him for the season right now. He's got 17 touchdowns, which leads the league. Third in passing yards. Only 2 interceptions thrown by Stafford on the season. And the last one was in their loss against Philly in week 3. So he's gone 4 straight games with 0 interceptions. And in those 4 games, let me do some quick Steiner mathematics here. He's thrown for 12 of his 17 touchdowns. So 12 touchdowns in the last 4 games, 0 interceptions. Old man Matty.
The only thing that hurts them is that they're on such a good run and they're on the bye this week. That's the only thing I think that hurts them. I mean, I think it's Puka Nacua was out this past week. And in lieu of that, Stafford looked to Devontae Adams and said, you're going to catch 3 of my touchdown passes. And he did. I am mad at myself, though, because I was out in the morning and I was listening to like a sports bettor talk show. And they mentioned Kanata Mumfield for an anytime touchdown. I should have put money on that because what the hell, man? I would have been bankrolling this week. But, again, this is what the MO of Jacksonville. This is why you can't trust the Jaguars, though, honestly. Because they put up a couple great performances, and then they're going to lay an egg. And it's not just an egg, it's a miserable egg. This was not good by them at all. The offense looked disjointed and just out of sync. There wasn't a lot to say, Lawrence didn't make any mistakes. He threw for 296 yards, but that offensive line was atrocious. 7 sacks allowed to a Rams D that we rave about constantly about how good this team is. And once again, who was there with 1.5 sacks? The guy that we love to talk about, Byron Young. Again and again, he's proving that he is a force to be reckoned with. And I really like the cut of this Rams team. I think that they're playing the right ball, and they're going to be fun to watch come down the stretch if Stafford keeps it up. Once they get Nacua back, too, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, Stafford answered a lot of questions with the performance after losing Puka Nacua for a significant stretch of time, and they're going to get the bye week relatively middle of the season. I think that kind of works for a team like them that's a mix of veterans and youth. And then their first game back is a tune-up game against the Saints, which I think is in L.A., so they're going to be at home tuning back up. Could be good things for them. Justin, I'm going to throw over the next game to you because it's still actually very similar MVP conversation for a quarterback who's now reascended himself and a team that might be reascending themselves in the league. Justin, 31-0 victory for the Kansas City Chiefs over the Vegas Raiders in this one. 286 yards and 3 touchdowns for Mahomes. There's now back-to-back 3 passing touchdowns, 0 interception games for himself. Connected with Rashee Rice on a couple scores as that scumbag, wide receiver, is now back in the fold for the Kansas City Chiefs in the lineup. Travis Kelce he didn't have a touchdown, but he had a decent game. And Hollywood Brown showed up. Rick, I wonder what that would have been, combining the Rams receiver with Hollywood Brown, because he almost feels like anonymous at times. What kind of money that would have been put for you, or maybe a 2-touchdown game for Rashee Rice. Rick would have skipped the podcast this week if he had any kind of.
Would have joined you from my yacht in the Barbados instead.
Indeed, to say the very least. So, Justin, are the Chiefs? It's 2 games in a row. One against the Raiders, not good. But one against the Lions last week, pretty good team for all intents and purposes. Are the Chiefs reascending themselves in the hierarchy of the AFC power structure here?
Yes. Yeah, they are. I mean, 1 game is, luck. 2 games is a coincidence. 3 games, this is finally back to what we saw when Mahomes was ascending, when everyone said this is the future of the NFL. And then they put together a very good team around him and made it so he didn't have to do so much. He could put his Mahomes times in when he needs his Mahomes times, but he was able to keep it under lock and key. Now you're seeing, hey, we need you, kid. Like, this needs to happen. And he's turning it on. And he's doing exactly it. So they're playing well. This game, they fired on all cylinders. They were clearly the better team. And they should be in the conversation for everything still.
Yeah. And a primetime game to bring them back to 5-3, and a division that in the first month looked like it may have been slipping from them with the fact that the other teams in the division haven't been as consistent. very much more than real possibility the AFC West is going to return to Chiefs Kingdom for yet another year. Browns Dolphins happened. Need we really say much more about that? A lot of people from the Dolphins are going to be traded, cut, and fired here in the coming weeks, at least if there was a properly run organization, which there's the issue. The Patriots defeated the Tennessee Titans 31-13. The Patriots just lauded over a inferior opponent. Mike Vrabel made sure this team had all their P's and Q's together in itself, to say the very least. Drake May, solid game. Didn't have to do too much in this one. 88 yards and a tutty for Ramondre Stevenson. Cam Ward threw a touchdown, finally. He finally threw a touchdown, but really not really much for the Titans to do. This is the first game, I believe, without Callahan, if I'm not mistaken, right? Was this the first? So first game without Callahan. Ward looked a little bit better. At least he looked a lot more respectable. That's really Tennessee's goal for the remainder of the season. But right now with the Patriots, they extend a small lead just a little bit more in the AFC East. Interesting season for the Patriots right now unfolding for them. It'll be a telltale sign to see what happens when the competition takes a little bit more of a step back up here in I was going to say in short order, but they're facing the Browns this weekend. So the defense is good. The offense, I don't know about all that. So,
hello.
But what do we make of the Patriots' continued run of form now? I think they're on a bit of a mini winning streak as well. What, 3-4 wins in a row?
It just adds more irritation to Justin's day.
Yeah.
When the Patriots are performing as well as they are. But look, I mean, you got to be happy for Drake May. He suffered through a lot last year.
I don't have to be anything for Drake May.
Okay. Anybody who's on this side of the conversation, you have to be happy for Drake May because he suffered through a lot last year. And, he seems to be getting a lot better on that side. It's nice that they have a viable number one. It's not just Stephon Diggs, it's Boutte, who caught a phenomenal touchdown pass from May. They look like they're a good team, man. They look like they're running on all sides. And I think it's a credit to Mike Vrabel that he's coaching this team up properly. I mean, listen, on the flip side of the ball, Tennessee looked good for a quarter. Mike McCoy, I think, can do some good things. He's at least got some coaching pedigree, He worked with, Phillip Rivers for a few years in San Diego, so
yeah,
he can coach a team. It's just not this team. I think it's funny to me that and it's he's not on the Titans anymore. But when I saw this week that Trevion Burks got signed by the Commanders, I thought to myself, wait, when did Tennessee release him, and when did I not know about this? And did we cover this on the podcast? I wasn't really sure because we're not big Trevion Burks fans, but not to mention, honestly, Tennessee's got to be in the market for a running back in the offseason. The Tony Pollard experiment is done. Tajay Spears is okay, but Tony Pollard can't be their number one anymore. They need to get somebody else. Maybe they find somebody in the draft. Although, let me tell you something, Ashton Genty ain't doing anything in Vegas, so I mean, you gotta be a little careful about that. Get a good line in front of him instead.
Do you really think it's a Tony Pollard problem and not a Titans problem? I mean, the way that the team has been run, the issues they've had with the offensive line, and the complete lack of quarterback play, they are stacking the box, and this dude's still doing something.
I mean, I just think that maybe in this year's offensive run, it just wasn't good enough. I think part of it also you have a rookie quarterback, number one overall pick over there, who's not really sure of himself, who's not really capable of making quick moves and making decisions on the fly to get Pollard a little more play time. And especially in an offense like this where he's not really understanding things. Maybe McCoy slowed things down a little bit, but even so, I think because you can't get rid of Ward after one season. So I think Pollard is probably going to be on the outs because he was fine last year, but fine don't get you anything. Fine got you a fired Rand Carthen. That's basically what happened. He had almost 1,100 yards, and they still lost how many games on a number one overall pick. What does it matter at the end of the day?
I mean, I will say this, with Pollard, only gets 6 carries for himself in this game, and you kind of made reference to Ashton Genty there. I think a very similar amount of low carries. I think this is just a thing. I know game script changes, and I know situation in a game, and you want to technically try to win, so you're going to throw the ball more. But I don't know. I think to judge a running back just off 6 carries is for both Pollard, like Justin says, I think it's almost a similar thing with Genty. I think especially look, why was Chip Kelly ever rehired in the NFL? Why? For an actual position, quarterback coach, all right, passing game coordinator, a special offensive assistant and analyst, whatever. Offensive coordinator?
What about director of catering?
He might actually do a good job on that.
Yeah,
but like I think these running backs are in a situation where like Justin was saying for Pollard, like I think just it's a similar thing. Like Raiders and Titans, like I think Genti and Tony Pollard are the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. It's like your offensive line is having you get hit when you barely get to the line of scrimmage. Yeah. You're barely getting any carries in the game plan. Yeah. Your offense is being run by a couple incompetents right now. All due respect to Mike McCoy. Maybe it's more the OC, maybe it's the game plan, but I don't know. 6 carries for the guy that's supposed to be the starting running back isn't great. And wasting a rookie first-round pick right now with that offensive coordinator, I know it's very early in Pete Carroll's tenure. You may have to shoot one of the bullets in the chamber and fire Chip Kelly because that offense is not good, to say the very least, in Vegas. Even if you think Geno Smith is the problem. He's a Seahawks Ring of Honor. Raiders, not so much. And, yeah, just with Tennessee, like, we already spoke about. I think this is the story for the Titans season whenever we go over a game is how did Cam Ward do? Is he looking better? And I think it's a 1-game sample size, but I think he looked a little bit better and a little more confident under Mike McCoy. And I'm hoping McCoy can let him unleash a little bit. Like Cam Ward can make some he hit some dimes in his college years. Like he threw some dimes, to say the very least. I want to see if he can get more of a chance to at least try to air the ball out, even if they're not connecting. I'll blame the receiver. Cam Ward, you can do no wrong. Come on. So we'll continue with that, to say the very least. Look, I need to be nice to the quarterbacks that you try to alienate from us, Rick. We need the young people to like the show. So
these are the Titans, though. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Stop pandering to the lowest common denominator. 6, 7.
Okay. Saints Bears. Notice how I'm skipping a certain game. We'll give the Panthers one more week to see how real of a team they are. Bryce Young is intriguing, to say the very least. 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Completion percentage is starting to slowly rise up week after week. Maybe do it against more of a significant opponent, but Bryce Young, is Bryce Young finally going up as CJ Stroud is ascending? Like, are they meeting on the mountain path on different sides is a question to be had, I think.
No. But can I say one thing, and it's going to sound like a weird compliment that I'm going to give to Bryce Young, and I don't ever do this often, so mark the date on your calendar, boys. The one thing that I will say about Bryce Young that I found very compelling and very positive was his incompletions against the Jets. Because of the fact that he wasn't trying to throw a ball into a tight spot, if he was on the run or he was in trouble, he would throw the ball on the ground at the feet of a receiver because he knew that he wasn't going to complete a pass and he would just live to find another down and go forward from there. I think that's a level of maturation that I think you weren't going to see in the Frank Reich offense, and the Dave Canales offense, I think, is a little bit better. He's getting understanding that more so now, that if he's going to take a hit, don't throw up an air ball like Russell Wilson would do or Tyrod Taylor would do. For the love of God, Tyrod Taylor, stop throwing at J.C. Horn. Like, throw to anybody else. But I think it shows a level of maturation and confidence that he knows he can come back the next play and find a receiver with better time in the pocket. So, again, you're still an Alabama quarterback. You still picked number 1 overall too high. You're still undersized. So all those things against you inside. Good on you, kid. But, yeah, to your point, we'll see what happens next time.
Indeed. In the meanwhile, another former number 1 overall pick somewhat led his team to a win. I mean, he wasn't very that much impressive in the game. He only got sacked 1 time, which is a woohoo. Threw an interception, no passing touchdowns. But Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, and co. get a 4th straight victory for the Chicago Bears. They defeat the New Orleans Saints. Defense did its job with 3 interceptions on Spencer Rattler. And DeAndre Swift, a couple seasons ago when DeAndre Swift was the 2-week MVP, according to Justin, well, now that's back-to-back weeks of passing the century mark on the ground, baby. Back-to-back 100-plus rushing yard weeks, 124 and 1 touchdown, tore up the Saints' porous defenses at least. Even the backup running backs in Chicago got a little bit of playing time. Roshan Johnson only had 1 carry, but he had 11 yards on it. And Mononagi, is that his last name? He also had a relatively efficient day, 13 carries, 81 yards. So just ran completely all over the Saints defense there. And Saints offense, shout out to Chris Olave. When he's not being hospitalized, he can have good games, such as the two receiving touchdowns he caught in this one. But the Saints just don't have enough. Congrats to them that they were able to get their win earlier to not be winless this season. But they are, even to the Bears, they are an inferior team. Boys, are the Bears for real right now? Should they be a serious threat in the NFC?
I think that they are a well enough put together team that they can give anyone a run for their money, but I'm not going to say they're for real. Like, they should maybe threaten for a playoff spot, but they're still a couple of years away from being something that, or at least 1 year away from being something that I would consider a real threat.
That's more than fair.
Can I just say, Roma Dunze looks really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'd hate to be the team that picked before the Bears and didn't pick that guy up, because he's looked like everything he's meant to be coming out of college and then some. I know he had a rough year last year, but rookie mistakes, rookie errors. Matt Eberflus is your head coach, notwithstanding. I think now that he's got his right offensive scheme going, I don't think you can ask for anything more on that end there too. So I think they have a really good number one over there in Chicago.
And the notable teams, let's just say the two teams that drafted just before the Chicago Bears in that draft, the Tennessee Titans selected J.C. Latham out of Alabama with the 7th pick, and Atlanta selected Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick. So,
well, I mean, the Penix one's looking a little bit better and better as the weeks go by. The Tennessee one is just, yeah.
I was gonna say he was their left tackle in 2024, started the entire season, but then he was moved to right tackle after they brought Dan Moore into the fold from the Steelers, because they paid him so much money that Steelers fans were laughing at the fact that they paid him all that money. So, I guess nice to be able to get a versatile offensive lineman, but if he's not going to be an all-pro, you may have missed out on what could be your current rookie quarterback's wide receiver run, or wide receiver one. Speaking of being on the run, the Minnesota Vikings, with their tails tucked between their legs in Minnesota as they got defeated by the Philadelphia Eagles, so the defending Super Bowl champions pick up a much-needed win, question mark. The Eagles at one point went up by 12, but the Vikings made it a very close game in the fourth quarter early on, but they were able to create some distance with, guess what, a 26-yard touchdown to A.J. Brown in the fourth quarter. Helped make that
the game.
That little bit more space there. So A.J. Brown, 4 catches, $121, 2 tutties. Devontae Smith, 183 yards, 1 touchdown. Interesting that now in this one, it was really the passing attack for the Philadelphia Eagles that finally really made its mark, to say the very least, which, by the way, so sad for Carson Wentz, doesn't get a revenge game in this one. But the Philadelphia Eagles come away with the victory here off of the back of their passing attack. Saquon Barkley, it's been a pretty slow season for his standards, to say the very least. He's 3rd in carries, but only 23rd in rushing yards right now. So not looking great on the hit for him after that 2,000-plus yard season a year ago. But what do we make of the seemingly, again, I know it's only a game, bear with me, but the revitalizing passing attack, at least for a week? We want Max. Free Max Brosmer. Is that the Vikings?
That's the undrafted backup quarterback now. McCarthy's hurt and Wentz is not doing very well. Just put in the kid. What's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah.
I don't know if they lose the game 28-5. I don't know.
Oh, you give them 5 points? Yikes.
Yeah. Hey, but always room for a cheeky safety in this world.
That's true. No rouges in the NFL.
But what do we make of the peace? I think the Eagles could keep the peace at least for a little bit longer here, boys. Winning cures all, and maybe A.J. Brown, 2 touchdowns helps them out a little bit. Nice amount of yardage. Realistically, the real question to ask is, how good of this is this, and how real can this be as a building block for them to reestablish the passing attack going forward?
It's It's definitely something that I think is significant for them. I think that they had a good matchup this weekend. The Minnesota secondary is not all that, and so you know when that's the case, they exploited that and they went for their two top targets in Smith and Brown. I mean, it shows you the fact that combined they had over 300 receiving yards, whereas Dallas Goedert only had 18. Because in other games, Goddard's the main target, depending on what the secondary shows. But I think you scheme the game plan properly and you know where the weaknesses are on these teams and you can make, significant headway. It showed too because, the running attack for Philly was just non-existent. I know Barkley had concussion fears and he came back to finish the game, but even so, if it wasn't for Barkley, they only ran the ball with one other running back, and that was Tank. It was only one time for 11 yards. So he and Roshan Johnson had the same amount of production this week. It's not really ideal for Philadelphia there, but again, if you scheme it correctly enough and you know who you're facing and you know what you're going up against, I think you can get away with it. It's still, I don't think Philadelphia, to me, has that signature win on their schedule yet that, to me, it says, stamps their approval of, hey, they're still a lock to be a defending Super Bowl champion and a threat in the postseason. I don't think they're there yet. And I mean, I think you're looking at their schedule going forward, and there are some games that they have coming up that are a little bit questionable, if I'm being honest, because, there's nothing here that's impressed me. It hasn't been like Kansas City had a statement win this past week against Vegas. They shut out the Raiders, which I get it. You shut out Geno Smith, but it's still Geno Smith. He's still a Ring of Honor candidate on some team.
You're dang right.
But Philadelphia, they don't have that signature win yet to me. So maybe they get it this week, but I'm still waiting. I think Eagles fans are still waiting too, to be honest. I think they're done with one-score games.
Yeah. They need that game where they feel in control, where they're truly dictating the pace, and I think they really need to get Saquon going here because, look, there's a difference between what we were bringing up early in the season of like what was going on with the vertical passing attack and everything versus now like complaining. Like, this is not to say that they can't succeed and that they shouldn't be throwing the ball even more or like at a relatively consistent rate, but it's just the like if there is something wrong right now with Saquon, if this fear from the injury in this game lingers for an extra week or two, how often are you going to be able to just bank off the fact that you can throw these passes consistently? And, will the coverage be too much? Will Jalen Hurts start to make more mistakes? Will wrong routes start to be run? Will frustration start to regrow? And it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Like the Eagles, they need to find that balance on their offense right now. I think that's the key thing. I think, the defense has kind of been touch and go. They've had some tough games there. They're bringing back an old friend out of retirement, to say the very least. So we'll see if that solves anything in terms of the front four. But like, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I think they're, you could ask for more from the defense, but I really do think this Eagles offense, like, it needs to find its balance, and I think it needs to find a balance soon because as talented as I think they are, there's no such thing as a one-dimensional offense that's going to go far. There's just not. They're going to meet their maker soon enough. So. But again, this is why they're very much happy seeing the NFC East cannibalize itself, as we'll get to here in a couple games' time. But from the Eagles and us, still having some questions about them, but them being in a pretty good spot in the NFC. To Justin, are we starting to run out of questions we can ask about the top seed in the AFC here, the true top seed, the Indianapolis Colts, the number one offense in the NFL, the guy who may be the offensive player of the year, the league leading scorer, and he should be the MVP. One of the MVP candidates right now. Daniel Dollar Signs is what I'll call him for this start he's had to the season. He's leveled up in currency because we're starting to get rid of dimes and cents here in this country for a very sad reason. So got to upgrade to the dollars. Maybe the gold bars need to come back. But look, defense is rocking. Defense has had its moments. Daniel Jones is continuing to play relatively mistake-free football. Jonathan Taylor is an MVP candidate. Justin, do the people need to open their eyes? Do the sheeple need to walk to the light? Do they need to recognize? Or are the Colts the true power in the AFC right now?
I think that if anyone was not considering them going into this week, they probably weren't watching enough football. This team has been for real all year long, right from the get-go. They've won the games that they're supposed to win, the games that we didn't consider them in. They've played closely. I know they were on the road, but I didn't understand why they were underdogs this week. They were the better team. I mean, the Chargers for the last 2 years have been a sloppier football team than we would have liked to see. And this year, all the Colts have done is run their game plan, run it strong, and play super well and put up points. So I never understood why that was the case. That's what I was happy to take them as my underdog with my 3-point pick.
Quick little shot there for him. But no, I mean the Colts overall, like Justin is saying, the defense. DeForest Buckner had a 2-sack game. I've been a longtime fan of him. So he leading that front four. Him and Kwity Paye also had some games this season. It's been something to say at the very least. That defensive backfield has done its job. Again, Daniel Jones is just playing mistake-free football. Shane Steichen has unlocked something here. Like I was talking about with some coworkers at my job. If you really consider it, the Colts are legitimately up for more than a half dozen individual awards right now because Shane Steichen is looking like a real coach of the year right now. You have Daniel Jones, I think, is going to be the comeback player of the year more than anything. Jonathan Taylor up for both MVP and offensive player of the year. Tyler Warren being up for offensive rookie of the year, I think is a reality because he's trending on what Brock Bowers was doing last year. And there's no rookie quarterbacks that are going to take that down a peg or two. And the rookie running backs that we would have thought could have challenged that have either been sabotaged by their own offensive coordinator or out for the season, unfortunately, basically. So offensive rookie of the year looks like Warren Slews and what's called Pittman, who has been a recurring theme on this show whenever we've talked Colts in the past because, harkening back to the early days of this program when he was one of the guys that was on our leaderboard, right, on our wheel spin of breakout candidates. Never really has become that number one option for Indy, but is he almost better off to not be the number one on that team? Let it be a Warren, let it be a Pierce, let it be the other weapons on that team. Like, is he almost so good that he's maybe better off as your number two option on the consistent, or even number three on certain plays? Number two wide receiver, number three when you include Warren as well. Like, it's very interesting to say the very least. No, I think you're right, Justin. Indy is I almost said it isn't there, but is a all around team, well coached, disciplined, fundamentally sound, putting up the points. They're number one in the conference right now for a reason. This is not a fluke. And they beat a team that, like you said, like we've had expectations of them in seasons past. There was expectations of them going into this season for at least to be a wild card team. Early on, it looked like they maybe could have snatched a division away from the Chiefs, but not so much anymore because you have the same record as them. And God, that week one victory for them against Kansas City just feels like a lifetime ago at this juncture. So it's a tough times to say the very least. And, I mean, it was nearly could be a 3-way tie at the top of the AFC West. If it wasn't for arguably the most bonkers fourth quarter comeback that we're probably going to end up seeing this season, barring anything crazier. The New York Football Giants were up 19-0. Colorado. It starts early with Troy Franklin, right? 19-8. 2-point conversion gets in. But hark, Theo Johnson from Jackson Dart. And they're back up 26-8. But it keeps on going. Bo Nix rushing touchdown. Another 2-point conversion. Done. RJ Harvey from Bo Nix. They settle for the kick. Bo Nix rushing touchdown. Jackson Dart rushing touchdown. And then Will Lutz with ice in his veins at the end. Ice in his freaking veins because at 56 yards in 4 plays, Nix to Mims. That's one of those big-time catches we've been talking about from Marvin Mims. Cortland Sutton for 22. That's all she wrote. So, good night, Irene, for the New York Football Giants. Heartbreaking way to what really was the best game of Jackson Dart's career he's played thus far. 283. That completion percentage wasn't ideal, but 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, kind of was shrugging off any mistakes he was making. Got a rushing score in there as well. Again, Jackson Dart is doing this without the guy who's supposed to be his number one because that guy was injured. I think in Dart's first career start, if I'm not mistaken. Like, tough, heartbreaking loss for the Giants right there. But what a gutsy comeback win for the Broncos, who now lead the AFC West. Rick, mile high upset, mile high victory. How mile high should the Broncos be feeling, or is there a sinking feeling underneath that ship of what's to come?
I think that there's some positives to take away for Denver. You have the right quarterback in Bo Nix. He while he had to throw the ball 50 times, not really ideal. You don't want that. Your offense still found a way. Still found a way, both with his legs and through the air, to get the job done. And they have a lot of good, solid players on this team. They really do. I mean, their defense was kind of held up. They only had 4 sacks this week when you consider the 9 they had a week ago in London. Stradad had a great interception that led to the go-ahead touchdown, the first one, because that was you knew it was going to happen. There was going to be a rookie mistake somewhere down the line for Jackson Dart in this game, and it was at the very worst possible time. The thing is that with Denver, though, they got very lucky to win this game, because even after they had that comeback, they were incredibly undisciplined in that final Giants drive. Because let's call it what it is here. The 4th and 18 play for Dart to Wan'Dale Robinson, he was short. He was short by about a half a yard. And if it wasn't for the roughing the passer penalty, the game would have been over right there. Because they wouldn't have challenged it. They wouldn't have reviewed it. It would have been, he's short, game over, bye. And then the pass interference call in the end zone, which I get, hand fighting and everything. But Sean Payton, you got to know better. You got to know better than the race down the field and then try and get that going on, because that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty set them up at the 1. You were lucky to just get, a Giants defense that didn't have Paulson Adebo, that didn't have, for some reason, Dexter Lawrence out there on the final drive of the game, which that has to be studied. And the fact that out of the New York Giants side, the fact that the only calamity that comes out of this one is that you need to have a new kicker and not a new defensive coordinator and not a new head coach or not a new offensive coordinator, because as good as Jackson Dart was playing, he was playing a lot of backyard ball. There was no real set. It was all razzle-dazzle, run around, find something at the very last possible moment. And Alex Smith said it perfectly. That's not going to be sustainable. And it's funny. The Giants offense, we've talked about it year in and year out on this podcast, mostly Jerk leading the discussion and the charge. It's not sustainable. It's not a winning philosophy. And it's not when you have a prize-winning quarterback who is the future of this team. One bad hit, and you're right back to Russell Wilson. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, especially because they're really just bent on never giving Winston the start, most likely. So it'll be something. No, the future of the franchise is there, and to see a game like this from Jackson Dart was you could see why they traded back up for him. There is legitimately something there, and it's like you said, it's about the structure, it's about how they're executing. It's just all about those little things that he is going to grow into over time. I think just the big question is going to be: is it going to be this coaching staff that gets to see him ascend to the level that it's? I think he's legitimately showing what kind of quarterback he can be in this league, to say the very least. So something to watch out for, to say the very least, going forward. Packers-Cardinals ended up being a 27-23 game, guys. I'm sure you, at least I didn't heavily keep up with it, but I definitely saw the headlines that the Packers were extremely, extremely delayed in even getting to Arizona to play the game due to issues with their travel and everything. So layover, to say the very least. It was not the cleanest game in any way, shape, or form by Jordan Love. But the defense, they let up 23 points, but they came to play in certain moments. Micah Parsons had 3 sacks in this one. Jacoby Brissett did all he could to try to lead this Cardinals team, but it ended up being Green Bay that just gets to narrowly escape with the victory in and of itself, to say the very least, on this one. What do we make of it being, it was a turnover on downs that ended the game for the Cardinals after the Packers had to retake the lead late in the fourth quarter, with under 2 minutes to go. Is this something that we chalk down to, they had so many travel issues going into it, boys, that it's nothing to worry about? Or is there something to unpack here, no pun intended, for Green Bay after what was very close to being a loss, honestly?
Well, this is what happens when Kyler Murray wants to go play Battlefield or Helldivers instead of, playing football. I think he's still in one of those lobbies waiting to have a group of 8 people join him for a mission or a round or whatnot. But
he's waiting right now. His Kwanzaa is about to go right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's nothing, not here nor there. It wasn't impressive, Green Bay, but against a better team, they wouldn't have won this game. The Cardinals, and it pains me because every year it seems I'm wooed by what the Cardinals have, and I'm fancied by what I think they can be and what I think they can achieve. The only good thing they have right now is Trey McBride, who is one of the best tight ends in the game. Brissett looked good, but it's just constant despair and dismay and being let down by this Arizona team. And I'm not saying that as a fan. I'm saying that because I keep picking them to do well, and they keep letting me down. So it's just brutal all the way around. It's just brutal. I think this was a game that Green Bay can take some positive things on. The defense looked pretty good, and their offense did just enough to make plays work. But this is not a game that you go back to on the tape if you're the Packers and really relish in the fact that you got the win. You say you win, and then you're like we're moving on. No need to talk about this anymore. We're going forward, because if they had come out of this game with a loss, sure you can blame the layover and then blame all that, but it wouldn't have looked pretty, and it would have cost Matt LaFleur's his job in my world. But I can't always have what I want, I guess.
Will
Still
Buda
trying
Baker?
to fire him.
Well, death taxes. Rick's still trying to fire Matt LaFleur, and the NFL world trying to get manifest Buda Baker being traded from the Cardinals. We'll see if that ever happens for the guy, to say the very least. How many more disappointing games and seasons is he going to take? He's 29 right now. He's only a year older than me. He's turned 30 just after a couple weeks after the new year. So I guess a year and a half for him technically or so. But poor guy. Speaking of which, being disappointed, Rick, I think a lot of people are disappointed in the Washington Commanders right now. 44-24 loss in Dallas to the Cowboys. Marcus Mariota had to re-enter the game. The rushing attack was nothing. I know Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had a lot of hype in the preseason, but really, aside from a game or two, he has not been a consistent force. It's they were so quick to want to get Brian Robinson out of there, but then they almost kind of need to keep him, really, as that punch to go with the young rookie. The wide receiving core has been very hit or miss. You'll have a game where it looks like it was a great Luke McCaffrey will come out of nowhere for 2 or 3 catches randomly. Deebo Samuel earlier on in the season, the corpse of Zach Ertz at this point is kind of like he caught the lone passing touchdown in this one for them. Hasn't been pretty, and just the Cowboys absolutely just carved up 3 touchdowns. Javonte Williams, really brought himself in, continuing a very strong revival campaign for himself, 116 yards. CeeDee Lamb said, "Hello, I'm back," with 100-plus yards and a tutty. George Pickens, a decent game as well. Is this – I was mentioning it before with Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. Let me re-ask the question here. Are these two teams that are traveling on the same mountain but two ways? Are the Cowboys starting to climb back up slowly, or are the Commanders seeing themselves going down? Because once again, Jaden Daniels gets hurt. He's questionable. They're saying it's not serious. They're saying it may not be long-term, but he still could miss this upcoming weekend. This upcoming week is a big primetime game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I hate Dallas. Because by my analogy, he's not holding firm anymore. Granted, Jaden Daniels getting hurt is probably what killed this game, but Schottenheimer's not a good head coach, man. I don't know. Yeah. I feel bad for Washington, man.
Yeah, I'm not really reading too much into this for Washington either. They're missing their top 2 receivers. Jaden Daniel is hurt. He got hurt halfway through the third quarter. They weren't ever really in this game, but we always knew that the Cowboys could put up points against anyone. That was never something that was in question this year. It was going to be the defense and how Schottenheimer was going to coach them in crunch time. These are things that just didn't come into play this game. We knew that Washington had a poor secondary. We were hoping that it was fixed this year. It was looking good at the beginning of the year, but against a team like Dallas, when they're at full power and they're humming like that, you're not going to be able to stop them. So you need to outscore them. And there was too many injuries for them to really do that. They knew they could stack the box. They knew that they didn't have to worry so much about coverage because all of the receivers were out. I'm not putting this so much against Washington. It's not a great performance. I'm certainly keeping my eye on it, but I don't think this is something to all of a sudden panic about.
That's fair. Maybe is the panic not so much in the fact that they did drop this game to Dallas? Is the panic more about the fact that, oh no, the second overall pick quarterback who had an electrifying rookie year is starting to look like he's made out of glass in his second year, and some of the weapons that we have around him that are supposed to be supporting him also look like they're not necessarily like having the cleanest bill of health right now.
Well, but this is also the problem with quarterbacks that play that style of play. We always knew it. He's going to take a lot of hits, and he's going to get hurt a lot more than we like for a guy like him to get hurt. It's just that's the issue with running quarterbacks. That's why they always got to step back and really find their passing game early because it makes a difference. It's a lottery ticket if you don't do that. So.
Literal lottery ticket, as in becoming a lottery. Well, there's no lottery in the NFL
and
draft.
Also, but just to throw it out there, they didn't go into the season thinking it was going to be Krusky Merritt. They went into the season thinking it was going to be Austin Eckler, who got hurt immediately. Also,
that's true.
So I think that they intended on being running back by committee, and Krusky Merritt kind of stepped up in absences. So he's still a young kid. We'll see what he can put together as the season goes, but.
True and fair, but they if they really want to be by committee, trading away Robinson, hindsight 20. I know I'm playing armchair GM here, but I like Austin Eckler. He's a very likable person. I think Austin Eckler.
I wasn't like sitting here being like that was a great trade. I'm just saying that was not really the intention.
Right. But now it's the kind of deal where like. Part of the reason they felt they could trade Robinson is because they wanted to go by committee, because they felt that JCM was the guy to be a part of that committee. And what I'm saying is maybe there's a reason why guys go drafted a little bit later, and the preseason can make a guy look like a star, but maybe he's not ready for that full time in the regular season just yet. That's my thing ultimately with that. Falcons 49ers. Oh, Atlanta. Oh, my Atlanta, some would say. Niners defense, despite the fact that they have people drop like flies. I mean, Penix, Bijan Robinson, probably the worst game he's put up this season. Drake London was kind of nowhere. Mooney led them in receiving yards in this one. I mean, shout out Kyle Pitts. Shout out Kyle Pitts. He had 62 yards in this one. I'm sure some people were happy about that in fantasy. Mac Jones didn't really do enough, but guess what? He didn't need to because riddle me this, boys. 24 carries, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions for 72 yards. Methinks that Europe has some interesting healing methods for the like of one Christian McCaffrey, because is he getting in gear? And if Christian McCaffrey can actually look like he's getting a little bit healthy here, that's a dangerous proposition for the rest of the conference. But it's just one game. This was his best game of the season by far. This is more of a standalone in a sea of decent games at this point for McCaffrey, but still something to look at. Here in Atlanta, I mean, just the disappointment reigns supreme with them, to say the least. So, yeah. And then a doubleheader for Monday Night Football, Lions, Buccaneers, Seahawks, Texans. Lions offense Jahmyr Gibbs almost put the game away essentially early on with how electrifying he was in the first half. 78-yard run to make it a 14-0 game. Amon-Ra St. Brown got fed the ball early. Gibbs ended up with 2 total touchdowns. It was just a start to finish, like controlling, like we talked about. This is the kind of game we want the Eagles to win, right? They come out early, they punch their opponent in the face, and they control the pace for the rest of the way. Buccaneers maybe had a drive where it could have looked like something, but not the best game for them for the season. And as we all know, the sad news that Mike Evans is going to be out for a significant amount of time with a collarbone injury, to say the very least, for most of the year, really depending on when he comes back. And this is going to end the 1,000-yard streak, which is extremely unfortunate because I had a feeling they were going to feed him the ball with him coming back. But the body has played just a little bit too much football for a guy who is, he's only 32. He's kind of an old 32 at this point when you consider all the injuries
that have done that have had really good careers after their 30s. It's a steep decline.
Yeah. It's sad. But Buccaneers take a hit. Detroit, big win for them. And then the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. CJ Stroud, just pedestrian football from him. And it's why I asked the question earlier because, Seattle looked great. It's, relatively game. Cooper Kupp also threw an interception. Come on, Cooper. But really just is a case of Seattle did just enough. Zach Charbonnet punched in a couple touchdowns. Jackson Smith and Jigba, even in a meh game, he had 123 of Sam Darnold's 213 passing yards. JSN looks like the real deal, to say the very least. He's first in receiving yards in the league right now, tied for fifth in catches. He's having a pretty good campaign. If only they could get him a couple more touchdowns here and there, he might actually threaten for his own little version of a Triple Crown. But the Seahawks offense looks like there's a balance there between Walker, Charbonnet, and JSN, that skill position group, along with Sam Darnold being fine. And that's why, again, I bring it back up, but it's why I asked the question earlier. Like, CJ Stroud has not been blowing anyone away. He's about middle of the pack in every single category, bottom half of the league in passing yards, just under the halfway point in the league in terms of, being, if 16th is the exact average, which I know it's not this season, but tied for 18th in passing touchdowns. Hasn't thrown a lot of interceptions, but is just not wowing you. How, season make the joke. This also could have been I think we've already made the joke this season, but boys, Houston, I think they still have a problem. And it's the fact that, early on it was the defense doing its job. This was not an ideal game for the defense, but I'm sorry, if I'm the Houston Texans right now, the offense has to go out and win you a game or two. You can't rely on that defense to continue to go back to holding foes to 20 points or less. It's not going to happen in every single game. This is not the 2000 Ravens. This is not the Legion of Boom Seahawks. This is not the no-fly zone Broncos. This is a good on-paper defense, and I think they have gotten good credit so far this year. Maybe this is a little bit of that goodwill, me extending it to them. But this Texans offense needs to come out and do something at some point. And if they're not, I think there needs to be some serious questions about CJ Stroud going forward.
Well, I think part of the real significant problem on their side is that they have one of the youngest offensive lines in the game right now. I mean, they're starting a second-round pick at left tackle. They're starting a center at their left guard because Juice Scruggs came out of college as a center and not a guard. Their oldest guy on the starting part of the line is Titus Howard, who many people saw was a waste of a first-round pick out of Alabama State. And then they have Laken Tomlinson, but that's not really going to move the needle there. So it's not a well-constructed offensive line. It kind of reminds you almost of how the O-line was in 2002 when they were playing their first season, because in 2002, they had drafted Tony Baselli first overall in their expansion draft, and he immediately retired. Not because he didn't want to play, but because he got hurt, and he was just really injured to hither and yon. And then what happened in that was that David Carr got sacked 81 times that season, I believe it was. So, the offensive line's not giving CJ Stroud enough time to make things move. Like, it's not the same pieces that are there. It's a very young line. I think it's Arceri is 23, Scruggs is 24, Andrews is 25, Ingram's 26, and Howard's 29. It's a very young, very inexperienced offensive line. And the problem is, too, those are guys that haven't played big football. Went to Titus Howard, went to Alabama State. Jake Anderson, starting center, went to Troy. They're not playing big football in Troy. They're not playing Sun Belt football in Troy.
They're not playing big baseball either, as you were about to say.
No, they're not playing big baseball either. So it's just like, it's just that's where your target area is. But the Texans, they're not going to get any better this season because they just don't have the capacity to make the offensive line move. There's not enough guys that they have there on the depth chart to make that line any better. And unfortunately, that's the problem. Is Stroud, he doesn't look impressive because he's not behind an impressive line that gives him enough time to make things work. So
an offensive line that to look at the GM, and I'm not absconding management here, like they willingly redid that entire offensive line in the offseason. Yeah. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
They cut guys. They traded Kenyon Green, if I'm not mistaken. They traded Laramie Tunsil, who again, even last year was a down year for his standard.
Yeah,
probably would still be useful on this team. So this is kind of a two-front thing of the offense is not performing, but part of the reason it's kind of everywhere. And yeah, that offensive line that they thought that they were going to hope I'm trying to figure out how they thought it was going to get better with that much changing on it, because like you just mentioned, Rick, like if we're going by all the names that you pointed out there, what 3 or 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are new this year?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I mean, it was bold to try to go that way to fix things all whole time.
And again, it's only going to get worse for Houston too, because Nico Collins had a concussion. So now you don't have Collins, you don't have Dell because he's out, you don't have Christian Kirk potentially. So who's your number 1 wide receiver? Xavier Hutchinson?
Sadness.
Do you elevate Berrios finally and see what he can do? Because
give him a shot. Come on.
but I tell you, it's not looking pretty, especially going into the fact that they, I don't think they passed their bye. I think, right? Yeah, they passed their bye.
Yeah, they had an early bye week. Yep.
Yeah. So now you have no real way to get these guys healthy to finish the season. You have no off weeks. Ain't gonna be pretty. This is gonna be a bad team. This is gonna be a surprise, probably top 5 lottery pick, I would say, for the NFL draft this year, because they're trending in a very downward direction. They really are. It's only gonna get worse.
So before, or actually, Justin, you can kind of speak about this and finish off our discussions here. November 4th at 4 p.m., from what I'm looking at, is the trade deadline. Is it even worth it for the Texans to try to do something here? Because it's not going to take just one trade that fixes everything on this team.
Like what? I think they might be a seller. They have some good young pieces there. It might be worth, or good middle-aged pieces, I guess is a better term, because there's guys that are there that might not be there long-term in terms of a championship. So why not take the chance, sell, and get some youth, some draft picks, and figure it out.
Justin, one of the great debates in the history of this program was the Minnesota Vikings and Danielle Hunter. And look who's on this team as we talk about them selling pieces again. Danielle Hunter. Are we going to get a repeat a week from now of the great Danielle Hunter debate? Only time will tell. Or we just completely forget about his name when we talk about trades next week. That's probably going to happen. That being said, that wraps up the highlights for this week, ladies and gentlemen. What a fantastic job by us, boys. We flew through that. We did a pretty good job this week. Bang up if I do say so. So from analysis to putting our think meats to the test here, ladies and gentlemen, because it is time for one of the weekly staples of this program, the hashtag SAOC, a pick challenge. Weekly staples during the season, of course, because in the offseason, there's nothing to pick unless we want to randomly start picking other sports. The hashtag SAOC pick challenge is where Rick, Justin, and I go across the NFL landscape on a week-by-week basis and pick games on a 4-to-1 points scale based on the big word confidence. Most confident to least confident is essentially what we're kind of doing here, or sometimes just throwing darts at the board and hoping we get lucky with it from time to time, for being the game that we most want to pick, one point game being the game where we're like, well, you know what? Got to pick something here. Because all full individual human entities in the history of this pick challenge must pick 4 games on a weekly basis. Other entities, it's a little bit more up in the air, to say the very least. We pick in a serpentine draft order from who is starting the week with the least amount of points to who enters the week with the greatest amount of points. Of course, on the path to try to become the hashtag SAOC pick challenge champion for our respective season. We must all pick points based off of lines given to us by our friends at
ESPN Bet.
And of course, the critical part of those lines, because we're not necessarily picking, like, this is not betting. We're not picking, who's necessarily going to cover with the spreads. We're just picking straight up what the spreads do is help us. Who is the favorited team going into that? Because we all must pick at least one upset game for each week. And the lowest amount of, or I shouldn't say lowest, least point and amount that we can use for an upset pick is the 2-pointer. So that means one of our first 3 picks must be an upset. We can also go for a tie if we do so well feel like. There's only been one tie this season. If you do use a tie, it must be used with your 4-point pick, but that 4-pointer gets upgraded to a 5. So, with that being said, I think I've listed everything. Podfather, we'll recap the standings. Let's get down to it.
Well, we had some fun last week. We truly did. One of us had a little more fun than the rest. It is the man who... it's the man who has, it's his second perfect week of the season, I believe. if I'm not mistaken. That would be Justin over there in the top right corner. Went from 34 points last week to a commanding 4-point lead at 45 after a perfect week of picks. Jurg, who was the leader in the clubhouse, got burned by his 4 and his 2. So he finishes with 41 points to go second place. Myself, 39 points, third place. I have climbed the mountain that is the entity selections of my children. And so for that, I am in third, but I'm comfortably ahead by 3 points over them. They're at 36. And so with that in mind, we are going to begin with the selections. And
look at all of us finally clearing the pod, children.
It's so wonderful, isn't it? Isn't it?
It's going to be so sad if they passed us all by the end of this week.
I know. It's going to be really bad, unfortunately. But I think we're going to do okay. I think we'll be in good spirits because I have faith in us moving forward. So, with that being stated and known, let's go ahead and lock in my 4-point selection, which is going to be a relatively easy one for me to go with. I am going to take the Monday night game, which is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs over the Washington Commanders. Will be my my selection there. If I'm looking at the correct week, which I believe that I am, then that is the Monday night game. And if that is the Monday night game, which it comfortably is, then that's what we're going with. So there you go.
Correct.
Yep. Jurg.
There's a couple chalk games in this lineup that are very tempting to pick. It's almost like too many to the point where it's like, pick your poison here. Part of me really wants to go with the revenge game. But at the same time, look, I failed to back an MVP candidate that I was banging the drum for last week. I'm not going to fail to back him this time. Not an MVP candidate this year. I will say, fun fact, as you bring up the 4-1s, Rick, I have 3 weeks, or no, not 4-1s, the 3-1s for me. I've had 3 weeks this season where my only correct picks were my 3-pointer and my 1-pointer. I've noticed that in my own personal record keeping. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yes.
So with that being said, give me, I believe they are the largest point spread favorite this week. The Colts over the Titans. I think Jonathan Taylor's campaign is only going to continue, to say the very least, and why not continue in this one? Like, there's so many juicy chalk games between me and Justin. I think of the remaining 3, I think he and I are probably going to end up going for the lion's share of those.
Ha! Lions.
Not an intentional pun, but
there you go.
I was muted. Yeah. You say that, but there's a lot of these games that I'm a little bit shakier on than you would think. Bucks Saints is a division game. They are still real banged up. They're coming off a tough loss. You would think that the Bucks are going to come on strong, but wouldn't this be classic Buccaneers to make this a closer game than it should?
Yeah.
The Bills have not been what we thought the Bills were. They haven't played well against teams with winning records, and all of a sudden the Panthers are 4-3, boys. That's not such an easy game also.
It's in Carolina, too.
And as much as I want to say that the Falcons are the right pick here, they're still the Falcons.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So those are probably my top 3 guys. I mean, I do like the Pack, although I'm not willing to make that my 4-point pick because I don't believe that much in it.
Real quick, I mean, with the way you're talking about this, Justin, do you finally have the lines in front of you again after weeks of you not having them?
I do not have the lines in front of me. I have no idea where they are. I cannot figure it out. I have spent hours looking through my phone and trying to figure out why it does not show me lines anymore.
Are you on the app?
Yeah.
It's just not showing you? Why is it showing it for me but not you?
I don't know.
Very weird. Very weird.
I don't know.
Okay.
But I am going to stop taking up a whole bunch of time and say, I guess I will go with the Bills. I'm going to do the Bills and then the Eagles.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that Giant thing is as nice as it was the first time. This is more of a losing record Giants team than a winning Giants team.
True.
Although if they do win, then I think that we should all take note that they win literally every other week.
That's
They're
true.
gonna start happening.
I was going to say, though,
Every other week it's an upset, and then the other week is a disappointing loss.
Could you imagine, though, we go into next week's show with the knowledge the Giants swept the season series on the Eagles? What a bizarre world we live in. I mean, the Eagles will still be 2 games ahead of the Giants anyways in the division. So
The pod wife would be ecstatic, though.
she'd be thrilled, but she's still not happy that they didn't win this past week. But she's fine that they cut the Irish kicker, so it's okay. It's all good.
Is that why that room is giant blue?
Yes,
That's the big blue room.
yes, it is. It's the big comfy couch in the big blue room. Yes.
All right, for myself with my upset pick, I'm definitely with Justin's train of thought. It's so hard to pinpoint which upset is going to end up coming true. So I'm going to go with a game that's a really close line. The home team is being favored here, I guess, because you just favor the home team sometimes. But I mean, one of these teams just lost against an NFC West foe, and the other team just had their running back have his best game of the season. The Texans are favored by 1.5. But I'm picking the San Francisco 49ers in this one.
You rat scallion. Yeah.
See, it's usually me losing the games I want, so now I get to take a game from at least one of you.
Yeah. Fine. Whatever.
Because I feel like Justin was going to pick the Colts game if it had made it back to him.
Definitely, that was a top game for me.
100%.
Maybe. It's possible. Well, it comes back to me, and I think I'm going to go risky over safe.
It doesn't sound like you at all.
It sounds like me, absolutely. You know it does. I'm going to take a 3-point upset here as well, like Jared did. But I'm going to go with a team that is kind of riding a high against the team that just pulled out a win at the dying moments and didn't really look good at all until the very end. So even though the game is 5,280 feet up, give me the Cowboys over the Broncos in 3. A little upset here. I think that can. I like Denver, obviously, but I feel like you get a win like that, an emotional charged win. The only place you have to go is down. And I mean, I think this will be a good battle of good defenses. But let me tell you something. You give me Brandon Aubrey to kick a field goal on that thin air in Denver, he's going to make it from 90. It's going to be wild to see that. So I'm taking that one.
Record watch for that.
100%. And then at 2, see, I'm kind of thinking to myself, I'm looking at that Baltimore-Chicago game. Because I'm thinking to myself, Lamar's back, so is Roquan Smith potentially, I believe. But is there rust on this Ravens team? I mean, they just came off the bye, and rust on Lamar, rust on Roquan Smith. It's a very tempting one to go with there. It really, truly is. Yeah, I'll do it. Maybe Baltimore over Chicago at 2. Let's see if Lamar comes back with a vengeance in this one. So I'll stand that game for a 2-pointer.
I'm torn between 2 games. I'm torn how I want to go with one of them. Whether I pick 4 against them, I have a pretty good record. I kind of have to go with that. They just had a big game. Yeah, okay, I'll take the risk. No risk and no biscuit is what Bruce Arians used to say. Give me, with my 2-point pick, the Bengals. On that one. It's okay. It's in Cincy. Yes, they are coming off a big win. The momentum is with them right now to try to continue this on. Like this is their definitive chance to get to 500 in their quest to be a respectable team by the time Burrow gets back. So.
Gotcha. All right, Justin, since you don't have the lines on you, I'm going to help you out with a little bit there just so you have an idea. Upset selections at 2 points for you are Minnesota over the Chargers on Thursday night because Chargers are a 3.5-point favorite. The Browns giving 6.5 to New England is an upset selection there. Tampa is a 3-point favorite over New Orleans, so the Saints would be your pick at that one. You could take the Falcons game with the Dolphins being a 7.5-point dog there. Or you could take the Sunday night game where Pittsburgh is 3.5 points underdog against Green Bay. So Minnesota, Cleveland, New Orleans, Miami, or Pittsburgh. I got to be honest with you, not a lot of good options there. One I think I'd go with if I were you, but I don't know where you're leaning.
I think I'm going to go with Cleveland.
It's not where I was thinking, but that's a decent pick.
I just think that they're still a young enough quarterback that defense still might give him some fits. I know he's played well, but I don't know. That's just where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
And then I'll take Tampa Bay. If I was looking at it, I probably would have done Dallas over Denver for the opportunity was there, but it wasn't. So.
Okay, so we only have 3 games left, so the entity will only be getting 1 game this week. What are my 3 games left? Because I was eyeballing that Browns-Patriots game for myself.
So you have Minnesota and the Chargers.
Okay.
Atlanta and Miami.
Okay.
Or Green Bay, Pittsburgh. A Super Bowl rematch, might I add, from many years ago. With Rodgers on the opposite side of the field.
That's wild to think about.
Interestingly enough. Yeah.
That Thursday night game is like way too bewildering for me to pick. I'm gonna go with the Falcons at my 1-pointer, but not with the most amount of confidence on that one because they are a weird team.
Well, that leaves me in a bit of a dilemma, which is fine because
the wheel has been readied, by the way. For
good. I think the safest play for me is to see if that Sunday night game provides any kind of a spark. I was the Packers at 1 point over the Steelers there. Let's see if Green Bay can get their offense right, and if not, what do I always say? It's 1 point. Doesn't really matter. Not really. That leaves that final game, the Thursday night game for the children, and it's a pretty easy selection for them. Specifically, this one is made by my daughter, the almost 2-year-old, because her babysitter is a massive Minnesota Vikings fan, and so the pick is the Vikings over the Chargers. So there you go.
We will see early what that point haul will be, and we're about to see what that point haul is going to be right now. Per the tradition, the last entity of the pick challenge gets 1 point worth of the game, but we spin to see how much it'll be worth. From 1x to 10x plus 1. Yes, do math. That's right.
It's Justin's least favorite thing of all time is the 10x plus 1.
You mean 11?
Sure, whatever.
Shut up. 3x is the outcome for the entity.
All right. That's not so bad. I think we can take that. It's not anything crazy, but we'll do. So, that being said, that being known, here are your selections going into this final week, this final segment, rather. Justin, in the clubhouse lead, goes Buffalo over Carolina at 4, then Philadelphia over the Giants at 3. The Browns in an upset over the Patriots at 2, and Tampa taking down the Saints at 1. Jurg goes with Indiana Jones at 4 points. The Gold Rush of San Francisco at 3 in an upset over the Houston Texans. Cincinnati at 2 over the Jets because I think Jurg just wants to add more misery to Justin's year so far. and then Atlanta at 1 over the Miami Dolphins. Incidentally, stealing 2 games that I would have picked, so you know where to find me. My picks this week: Kansas City over Washington on the Monday night game at 4. Dallas had an upset over Denver at 3. Baltimore over Chicago at 2. Green Bay over Pittsburgh at 1. And as we just saw, the Children have selected Minnesota over the Chargers Thursday night game. It is a 1-point pick with a 3 times multiplier that can only get them to 39, so they can only tie me this week. They cannot move past me. Thank God. We're not doing any minuses for bad weeks. So that's good. Good job, everybody.
Yay. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing left. To lo and behold, one of the staples of this program's history. You know it. You love it. Rick, you started off the proceedings. Take us all home with a good old-fashioned rant and roast from podium.
Now, just because I picked them doesn't mean they escape the rant podium. The honorable mention is still Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it's a good running gag the whole season long. Like, just I may pick you to win a game, but you're still a terrible franchise.
For this season, they're the perfect 4th place. They are Nico Hulkenberg pre-Silverstone 2025.
Poor Hulkenberg.
Pre-2025.
That's fine. Whatever. That's fine. All right. I felt long and hard about this one because I have 3 very good ones. And I've thought long and hard about where to place them. And I've come up with a solution here. Number 3 for me, one of my old nemeses is returning to the podium once again. And that would be Jeff Bezos. Because if y'all remember WALL-E, how by and large basically destroyed the entire world, we're getting that with Amazon, aren't we? There is an AWS web services outage that took down everything the other day. Took down a bunch of websites at my job, took down banks, airlines, Snapchat, Fortnite. Do you know how bad it is when you're a company that takes down Fortnite on a on a school holiday? Monday was Diwali. Kids in New York City were off. They couldn't play Fortnite because Jeff Bezos ruined their day. Greedy. You greedy SOB, Jeff Bezos, with an ugly wife. But that's all I have to say about that anyways. This is why we have problems in this country and in the world, because there's just too much conglomeration there. And we need to break up the big companies like Amazon and also give his wealth to everybody else. I want everyone in the world to get a million of his dollars because he's just the worst human being I think there possibly is. Number 2 on my list, something that he will potentially build. Skyscrapers. They're stupid and unnecessary. And if you don't build it properly, you're going to have what's happening on Billionaires Row in New York City, where a building that's only been around for 5+ years is already shedding chunks of concrete because it's built too high up in the air and it wasn't built properly. Like, who wants to live in that kind of a house where you walk down the side of the walk and all of a sudden a chunk of concrete 90 stories up is going to fly down and knock you out, basically kill you because you just had the temerity to live in that spot. Like, I understand the idea of building up because you can't build out, but there is such a thing as too high and too much there. And I'm looking at you, Dubai. It's way too much to build up top like that. So let's pump the brakes on the skyscrapers if we can, please. Because we can't go as high as the gods. Which brings me to number 1 on my list today. God. But not that type of God. No. Baseball gods. We wanted one thing, man. We wanted just one thing. The World Series matchup the world wanted was the Mariners, who had never been there before, and the Brewers, who were the Seattle Pilots, and then moved to Milwaukee, who never won it. We wanted that. The story is perfect. It fits it. It's Bob Uecker's legacy all over again. And what do we get instead? The freaking Los Angeles Dodgers, who nobody wants to win anything. The rich get richer against Toronto. Not even an American team. A foreign invaders in the World Series. And I know it's the World Series, but like, come on now. It's akin to the fact that it's going to look very weird to me that if Toronto does win the World Series, they'll hold the baseball championship trophy, but they can't even hold their own gosh darn trophy because they haven't held the Stanley Cup since 1993. Get your own trophy, or try and win that instead. But nobody wanted this series. Nobody wanted to see Shohei Ohtani against Max Scherzer with his two weird color eyes. Nobody wanted to see the Dodgers because ruining baseball is their MO. And nobody, maybe Canada did, but nobody in the States wanted Toronto in this. Again, we had a perfect storybook ending to a season. Seattle, Milwaukee. Small market baseball. Teams that deserve to go. And instead we get this piece of crap. And that's why baseball season for me is officially over. And basketball season never started because I'm not a fan of the NBA anyways. But hockey's going on, as is football, and that's all we really need to care about. So, yay!
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. What was a pretty chaotic Week 7 that raised, I feel like we keep getting more questions raised every single week than we have answers on a weekly basis. We'll try to answer this set of questions over the coming weeks as we head into an interesting point of the season with the weird 17-game schedule, 18-week season, yada, yada, yada. It's going to be very interesting midway point. As I mentioned earlier, trade deadline is literally in just about 2 weeks' time. So we're going to see what NFL teams end up being active and who ends up tearing down to the studs a little bit. We will, in a couple weeks' time, give you this year's version of the head coach hot seat-o-meter, where we will bring coaches to the fray and decide, is their goose cooked or is it cold for them? Like a beautiful snowfall day, to say at the very least, in the beautiful Northeast. Questions to be answered, narratives to be continued to spun or to be created anew or to be torn asunder. We will see what happens in week 8 of this NFL season and more, and we'll be right here back next week to analyze it all for you, our beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the fun football and chaotic podcast known as #SAOC. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.